Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to another base/electricity tutorial. Today I just want to show you guys how I run my auto turrets and SAMsite in vanilla, and how I keep them going all the time. So here I've just set up a 3 auto turret system. At the moment it's only running 3. You can expand later on, and just on the side here is just my second half of the circuit, which runs the SAMsite here on the roof. Today I'm just using a windmill and a couple of solar panels as my power source. I normally see in YouTube videos, YouTubers might use these generators that are spawned in on build servers, but it's not a real good way of explaining how to keep it running 24/7, especially because that power is just a constant 100 output. At least this way you can sort of understand and hopefully learn a little bit from this. Okay, so firstly, just working from right to left here, we've got our 2 root combiners and a electrical branch followed by a counter. You don't have to have this counter here. I've just got this counter just showing you for the tutorial purpose how much power is going into the auto turret and battery circuit, and this left hand side of this electrical branch is the SAMsite circuit. I'll show you that a little bit later. So firstly we have I just want to explain something. Out of each electrical component you lose one power that is generated. So we've got 58 coming out of the root combiner, and then 57 at the top of the electrical branch, and then through each component you lose 1 power. So whether it be this counter, you got 126 and 125 coming out, and then as you keep adding components you keep losing power. So just keep that in mind, especially with doing, like, a lot of people like to add a bulk ton of switches, or try to keep it as simple as possible. That way you can preserve as much power as possible. For this circuit I've done the math already. I know that I need 31 power for my SAMsite circuit, and I need 35 power for my auto turret circuit. Okay, so we've got 35 coming out of the left hand side of the electrical branch and going into the bottom of this electrical branch, and then whatever's left over is now going into the battery, and that's charging the battery. So that will be going to the input of my battery that's in the next room, and then outside of the output of the battery will be coming straight into the bottom of my blocker here. On the left hand side of this branch I've got that feeding the OR switch. Now I need 32 power because it's going through 2 components. So outside of the OR switch it goes, outside of the branch it'll go straight into the bottom left hand side of this OR switch, and then out of the switch it then goes into the splitter. So we got 31 at the top of the splitter, and then outside the bottom of the splitter says 30. Now it might say 30 on each individual line, but that's incorrect. It's actually 10 at 10. So if I was to take away 1 auto turret, I would have 15 on each line, and if I was to take away 2 auto turrets I'd have 30 coming out of 1 line. So if you add anything extra into the bottom of the splitter, it automatically splits the power. So that's something just to keep in mind. It's kind of useful, but sometimes I find it better to use branches. That way I can use my exact amount of power. Sometimes people use a splitter for something that only needs 1 power, so it's not a very good thing to use unless you know exactly what you're doing. So I'll just prove this here. If we go to each one of our auto turrets, I have 10 power coming from the splitter. So that shows its correct values at the load side of the splitter. Okay, so right now is a really good example. We've got 40 coming out of our solar panels. If I was to remove this and only have my windmill, you will notice that there's not enough power in this circuit. So in turn, regardless of how much power is coming out of this branch, it won't be enough to run those 3 auto turrets. So the electrical branch will now have 0 power going into it, and then will allow the battery to push through. And I'll show you now, just by removing the solar panels. You can see that there's not enough power coming out of my wind turbine, because at the moment it's not that windy at all. I've only got 22 going into my circuit, and in turn my battery's automatically kicked in and now pushing 100 power straight into the splitter, and then feeding my auto turrets. And then once that power then exceeds that amount, it then blocks it again, and then allows whatever's coming out of my branch, which is 34, to go into the bottom of my OR switch, and then out of my OR switch, then feeding my splitter. Okay, so a few things to remember. Outside of this branch, or the right hand side, is whatever's left over from the circuit. It's going in and feeding our battery. Outside of the output of the battery comes in and feeds the blocker. As long as that blocker is red, your battery is charging. So at the moment we've got 62 power going into the battery, and the time is going up. At the moment it's 1 hour and 20 minutes, which is plenty enough time to last a night. And the battery will only kick in if it's a not so windy day, or you know, it's night time or whatever. The battery will then kick in for how long ever it takes for the windmill to pick up wind again and some more power. Or depending on, you know, if someone raids your base and raids the windmill, you'll have 4 hours on the battery by that time, hopefully. And these auto turrets will stay on. So if I was to remove both power sources, automatically the auto turrets turn off and turn back on, because the battery bank is now kicked in, and that will last for as long as 1 hour and 20 minutes at the moment. So yeah, that can go up to about 4 hours depending on how early in the wipe you put this down. Since I've been doing this tutorial, that's already got 1 hour and 20 minutes charged, so that's pretty good. Hopefully I don't get raided within that time. In future videos I can show you, if you would like to know, how to set up extra battery banks so you can have up to 8, 12, 16 hours of battery life. Or even if you want, I've tested out the new generators. So say for instance they break your windmill, they find where you're hidden your battery bank, they've broken your battery bank. I've set up a force start on my generator so that when my battery breaks, my generator then kicks in with 1000 low grade and runs for a few hours or so. So I can show you how to do that. At the moment this is just like an intermediate circuit, and we'll just go from there. So okay, so now that we've done the auto turret side of the circuit, I'll show you the SAM site side. So we know out of this branch we've got 31 power coming out, feeding our SAM site circuit, which is just over here. So there should be 31 going into this branch here. Outside of the left hand side of the branch is the RF receiver, which is this thing here. So that's going to the input, which is I've set to they set to a minimum of 2. I think this thing only needs 1 or 2 power. And then outside of the power output of the load of the receiver goes to the toggle of the memory cell. Now as you can see, I've got 31 at the bottom of this. So there's 30 at the top, minus 2 for the receiver. There should be 28 here. And then through the receiver, through this branch, we've got 27. And then I've set this branch to 27 so that I have enough power for my SAM sight as well as the flasher light, which I've got in between. So you can see right now that you have to set this here to whatever frequency you want to set it up. I've set this to 50, and I've also set this to 50. Now to set the transmitters a little bit different, you hold right click and then you set, where this one you just press E and then you can set the frequency. So as you can see, there's no power to, when there's a red light like that, that means there's no power to the SAM sight. Also, I've also set up a flasher so you can tell if the SAM sight's on. And then there's also a green light on your SAM sight, which gives you an indication whether it's definitely on or off. Now you can have, what I normally do is as a group, we normally have like 2 or 3 bases in one communal SAM site, and we'll have one of these buttons in each base, these RF transmitters, so that if one of the boys want to fly a minicopter out, they can just go into one of their boxes, flick the switch, and then they can fly off in their minicopter, and then when they come back, they just turn the SAM sight back on. The good thing about these blue lights is that they can't be seen through the base, whereas there's a red siren light. If you were to put that in the base, people can see that light, and then they can sort of get the idea, okay, his SAM sight's on, or whatever. So I normally like to use these blue lights, but it just depends on what you would like to do. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the tutorial, guys. I hope you've learned something. If there's anything that you think I could do better even, please put it in the comments below. And also just another important thing, what I normally do in my bases is I wouldn't just have my power componentry just like this. I would put this in its own individual room, hidden away in a spot I would think the raiders wouldn't raid, especially the battery. I'd put it in like a corner of the honeycomb or something like that, just making it a reason for the raiders to hit a certain section, that they don't have to. Same thing with the auto turrets. Like for this base, I'd probably put an auto turret under the stairs there, just because it forces a raider to raid something they don't want to raid, or use explosives for. And there's no possible way to drain the auto turret now, so they have to blow that section or somehow drain the auto turret, which is not drainable at the moment. So they say it's a nerf to auto turrets, but if you're good with electricity, I think it's a buff. But yeah, I hope you learned something, and catch you guys on the next one.